everybody, and welcome to this episode. I'm really excited you're joining me here today because we're going to get into a topic which is one of the, I would call it the cornerstones of what this channel and this show is about. And that is about discovering your greatest self within. And so in order to do that, there's certain things we have to look at within ourselves and around us to do that in a really healthy way. So what I'm going to talk about today is ways that we're going to explore and activate and utilize our intuition to approach wellness. We're going to talk about some unique ways to do that. And we're going to get into the possibility of transforming your fears into personal freedom. And also look at how to eliminate anxiety within our lives. All of us have anxiety from time to time, and so it's always great to be reminded of new ways, practical ways, applicable ways to begin to release those and get along in terms of our path to personal peace and happiness. So the topic today and this episode is about learning practical insights and applications for emotional healing and spiritual growth. So welcome to Creative Visions TV. I'm your host, Karen Dahlman, and thank you again for being here. So our guest today has triumphed over many obstacles and hurdles. Let's just say sexual abuse, addictions, anxiety, eating disorders. It's been a tough road for her, but she found ways to work through that are unique and transformative. And that's why she's here today to talk to us about these. She has inspired many people all over the world in helping them transform their traumas, their pain, and to find that peace and wellness that everybody deserves to have within their life. You're going to want to watch this show because all of us do have anxiety and all of us do have some kind of thing, that trauma that happened to us that we may still be struggling with. And this guest has been doing this for over 2 decades with great results. First of all, she wrote a brand new book that just came out. It's called The Fearless Path, A Radical Awakening to Emotional Healing and Inner Peace. She's known as the modern sage. She is an intuitive, transpersonal healer, spiritual teacher, and she also is a musician, artist, and a dog lover. Now, we love our animals here, so that's exciting that we have somebody that loves her dog as well. She's a media personality and has appeared on many wellness programs, talk shows, and commercials. And she also owns a lifestyle media company that is known as A Girl Named Guy Productions. So I'm really excited to have her here today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Leah Guy to the show. Welcome, Leah. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, great. You know, we got to get right to it. I know you've been through some pretty extreme stuff, trauma. Let's just use the word trauma. And it's caused a lot of havoc in your life earlier on. But what took you from that into a place of transformation and now being able to help all these other people to work through their own traumas and anxieties?
Yeah, I would say a short answer is tenacity. I wasn't satisfied with the results I was getting. I knew I couldn't live the way I was feeling for the majority of my youth and then up until that rape incident. And then when that happened, in the book I described it, it kind of took me to the cliff. You know, it was that place for me where I had to decide how I'm going to live the rest of my life. And if this was enough, like how I feel now, or if there was something different, something more. And actually a friend of mine introduced me to this school in California about meditation and wellness and healing and so forth. And so I went with interest of learning, but also obviously it was a very deep healing experience for me. And so that's where I really started to learn about energy medicine, about channeling, about intuition, about mind-body therapies and control and personal development and meditation and all of that. So it just kind of boiled down to it was a dire choice. You know, am I going to be miserable or am I going to find my way out of this?
I think a lot of people can relate to that. You get to a point where you go, this is it, I can't take any more. And what can I do next for myself? So you actually reached out to a school, started studying, learning, and applying that to yourself, it sounds like.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I went through some regular therapy and, after the major traumas, I was on antidepressants and that kind of thing for a while, but there was something deeper in me that knew that there was a way, and if I'm thankful for one thing in my life is that connection or that, that vision of the hope, the light within myself that's always, just invited me to keep going forward, and I think that's, for me, that's the passion that I have in helping other people, is helping them find that light. There's really not much I can do for someone else or you can do for someone else if they don't have that glimmer of hope, of light to follow. And to me, that's the courage. That's the fearless path. It's not about not having fear. It's about having the courage to follow that light.
That's wonderful. So it's about the resilient spirit residing within everybody and finding a way to tap into that. And I'm certain you use different techniques and you've developed some unique and transformative ways. Do you want to jump in and share some of those?
Sure. Yeah, if you want to.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of things in the book. I call them emotional workouts. A lot of the techniques that I use, because so many people, especially in this day and age, we're all practicing yoga and on diets and fit programs. Yeah. And mental health, which is finally getting the attention I think that it deserves, even though we're not all the way, fully attuned to what's going on there. But there's not nearly enough energy or attention given to emotional health.
I agree.
So in my estimation, that I created these emotional workouts to remind people that dealing with how you feel is just as important, if not more important, than dealing with what you're thinking about and how your body is at that moment. Because generally, your mind and your body will be absorbing and be adapting to your emotional self. So we really have to learn how to practice and exercise and strengthen our emotional bodies. So in the book, I call them emotional workouts, and there's probably 3 or 4 for each different type of way that we suffer.
Okay.
I break the book down in very simple segments so people can look at symptoms, physical, emotional symptoms, and they see where they might be out of balance, and then they can study that chapter. And in that chapter, there may be an emotional workout. Some of them are physical, like, gardening or, helping an elderly person or writing in a journal. And then others are more cathartic, more emotional based, more body attuned and emotional based. So there's a lot of them in there.
Let's take an example. Give us one issue that you read about in the book, that, like one chapter or issue that we can look at, and let's kind of walk through that. Let's think I think a lot of people have struggled with when they have anxiety or any kind of trauma in the past, struggle with maintaining relationships and building those, and also trusting themselves. Trust is a big one, and then also career. So I'm sure you covered some of those. So maybe.
I'm actually just the kind of 3 different chapters. So the way I segmented the book, that it also corresponds to the chakras, the energy centers in our body.
It.
So, if you want to start with the root chakra.
Let's do that. Really, that's an important one, right? Because that's where you ground. Let's go through the chakras and explain that, please.
Yeah. So the root one is chapter 1, and that's really about, when people are feeling anxious, when they're feeling disconnected, when they're feeling uprooted. A lot of times when we have trauma, especially sexual assault kind of trauma and that kind of invasion in our body, or it can be emotional trauma. A lot of different traumas can cause this. But when we get so fearful, we separate ourselves. We kind of almost elevate ourselves out of the physicality, so that we it's kind of an avoidance of feeling, if you will. So a really important part of the healing process for anybody, no matter what they're going through. I say the first step is to get back in the physical, to get grounded, and to get anchored into the present. And that means in your relationships, it means in your business, in your career, in your purpose, with nature, with animals, and really feeling rooted and anchored that way. So, a lot of people have heard about grounding techniques and putting your feet on the earth and, sitting next to a tree and all that. But one thing I suggest in the book that a lot of people may not think of is, putting either sea salt, soaking your feet with sea salt water.
Nice.
Or putting like a fresh baby leaf between your sock and your shoe underneath your foot to kind of walk with the earth throughout the day. Sorry, there's a dog barking.
That's okay. We love our animals. But this is why you have the name, I think, Modern Sage, right? Because you do incorporate the oils. You do incorporate these natural products and the environment into these healings. And as you said, in this case, grounding.
Yeah. And speaking of oils, so I created a line of oils. This one is I don't know if you can see it. It's called Presence.
Yes.
And this is root chakra oil, and it has a hematite crystal in the bottle. Ooh. And it's a blend of specific essential oils based in organic jojoba. And this you actually put on the bottom of your feet. You put it at the base of your spine. You put it at your groin area and your pulse points. And I always recommend to apply it 2 or 3 times a day.
Wonderful.
And it really helps shift the energy inside as well as externally.
Well, and hematite is a grounding stone, and in this show we do talk a lot about the crystals and how to use the stones in our life. So yes, please, share your secrets, share your insights to this. So those are just a couple things for the root chakra, but it is really important, especially spiritual seekers and people, of the new thought kind of paradigm. People get very focused on the
third eye, the crown
airy
chakra,
fairy.
heart, all this.
We're way up here sometimes, right? Too often.
Yeah.
Get back into our bodies first. You know, my spirit guides always say you're a human first, although you are a spiritual being always, but you're here to be a human right now. So focus on that, and then remember who you are as well as being in these realms. So I think that's wonderful advice, because I know when people experience trauma and anxiety, and it could be a trauma, it just happened, like you witnessed a car wreck, or you were in one, or it could have been something as terrible as rape or incest or something of that nature. The bottom line is you dissociate, you leave your body, you learn to escape the pain. And so what I'm hearing you say, Leah, is let's get back into that. Let's be with it. Don't sweep it under the carpet. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. And it's the only way to heal, really. So, people are trying to heal somewhere else. They're trying to heal being separate from the pain. And you can't, it's just impossible. So it takes a lot of courage, to get back into your body, into the emotion, into the root of your issue, whatever that issue is, So that's, my passion is really about connectivity and helping people reconnect to who and what they are and all the experiences that they've gone through.
So then if somebody okay, let's say somebody's struggling with relationships, let's just take that one, and you would still start the root chakra, and let's say they don't even know why they're struggling with relationships. Maybe they have, maybe there was nothing really major traumatic, yet there's probably some anxiety there for some reason, and maybe they don't necessarily know that, but what would you say would be the best way to begin starting to be able to develop relationships?
Oh, well, that's a big one. I mean, everyone's so different with why they're struggling with relationship. But generally, I mean, in a blanket statement, I would say it's this core issue between chakras 2, 3, and 4. It's either a lot of people are dealing with a lot of shame or a lot of guilt that's keeping them from a deep intimacy with themselves and with others. And of course, they have their heart kind of temporarily or partially blocked or shut down because they want to kind of control how the experience of love and pain filters into their life. So when that's going on, it's really hard to make any shift, even if you're working with your shame and your insecurity and your low self-worth or your guilt or these deep intimacy kind of threads within ourselves, if our heart is only halfway functioning, just think about the body if you have clogged arteries, your body doesn't function as well. You have maybe soreness in your body, you're out of breath, you're fatigued. There's all kinds of things that happen. And so when the energy of the heart is also not functioning as well, it's the same thing in our relationships. It's like, we have start and stops. We have partial experiences of a depth of relationship that we want, and understanding and compassion and passion and all that kind of thing. So we have to really work on this heart opening and yet staying connected to the possibility of pain, the possibility of, what happens when I'm so open that I can allow my deepest sense of shame and guilt to come forward. How is someone going to treat me? And if they don't treat me well, then that's proof that I'm not okay. But when our heart is really open, we can reveal ourselves. And if that person doesn't treat us well, we can still honor ourselves and have the exchange of love and pain and still be fully aware and connected and functioning within. So it's a very challenging proposal for a lot of people. But, it's truly the way to have a full engaged relationship. So I would start there,
So pretty much it kind of starts at home with themselves to begin to be able to open up. And what now some chakras you talked about, where you said second, third, and fourth. So you're talking about down here and then kind of in the middle center and then your heart. What would you recommend, like for your oils or for even stones, or how would you recommend they start opening and working with or activating these chakras that might be shut down?
Yeah, well, I think it takes a lot more than just oils or stones. I mean, I do use those things as tools in addition to, but if you're really doing the work, it's going to take a lot of deep inner time and space, working on those emotional workouts that I recommend in the book, being willing to sit with some of the feeling, being willing to be honest with ourselves about what is and what was and who we are now, and when we can really have that awareness and connect in and with full acceptance, then things start to shift, automatically. What I tell people a lot of times is, when they're having difficulty with their heart, it's usually because, like I said, they don't want to feel the pain. If I love you and then you hurt me, I automatically have an instant conflict inside of myself of I love and I hurt. How can I love this person while they hurt me? Mm-hmm. Something's wrong with me if I love and they hurt me. Something's wrong with them if I love them and they hurt me. Something is wrong here. This is the conflict. If we can remove that judgmental conflict from our mind and just feel the experience of I love you, and you hurt me. That's what's real. And get rid of the judgment out of what it should be or how it could be or what have you, and just be with it. It's very, at that place, it's a very deep connection of that core essence of love, of compassion, of empathy for ourselves and for the other, saying, I love you, and I trust myself with that. And I have compassion and empathy for you, even though you hurt me, I love you, and allow that to be. Immediately, what most people want to do is, you hurt me, I hate you, you suck,
Yeah.
Get away from me, right?
Right. It's like a knee-jerk reaction, and it sounds like what you're saying is be authentic with that for yourself first, and then be able to communicate that as well, and know that you can have both things existing at the same time. Right. I'm hurting, but I also still love. You could have both existing. I think too often we want to just get rid of one over the other, and then the pain never goes away. Right. Or we don't learn how to open our hearts.
Right. We just create something that's not real in an effort to protect ourselves. So it's, again, a false illusion that the mind is helping us create instead of us being in the emotion right now, and it is challenging. I mean, it's challenging for me too. And I've been practicing this stuff for a long time, but I go through relationships with people and that are very painful and hurtful. Yep. I mean, that's the thing about love. Love brings pain. It just does. Love brings joy. Love brings love, but there's also pain with it. There always will be, because we are human beings that have the polarity of all sides, so it's unavoidable. It's just really unavoidable. And so we fool ourselves thinking that love is just all bliss and should be good and be easy. That's just not the reality of the world. Someone's going to pass, someone's going to make a mistake, someone's going to flip out, or whatever happens, and it's going to hurt.
Somebody's going to break your heart. You might break somebody's heart too. Yeah. So I love what you're saying about the dualism, that there is this existence within our realm, within the third dimension, of things are going to be both ways, and we have both sides of the equation, and not to get rid of one over the other. And that's at least what I'm hearing you say, and I think that's powerful, because then we can begin to realize that we are human, and like you said, and we also make mistakes. Not just out there they make mistakes, we make mistakes, and can we forgive ourselves? So I love where this that conversation is going with this, to look at ourselves and also with others, and have that compassion. So you talk about some really interesting concepts in your book, and we're kind of touching on as we talk, but I'm really interested in this concept of spiritual mapping. What is that? And explain that to us, if you would.
Well, I kind of started it in workshops that I do with groups. It's almost easier visually to see it, but basically it's a practice that we can do with ourselves, where we look at a place that we are and we're not satisfied. Maybe it's your job or your relationship, or it's usually something like that. And so we place this point of our dissatisfaction on a map. We create a map. And then this other point at the furthest distance is our heart place, right? And so from our heart to this place of dissatisfaction, we make a trail. And in this trail, the idea is when we become really honest with ourselves and not blaming someone else for why we're dissatisfied, which is normally what we do.
The true. Or we blame circumstances or the environment or the temperature of the weather, the house, the people. Right. We blame all these other things. Yeah.
We blame everything. So, but if you can be really honest with yourself and make this just about you, you'll see somewhere along the map the decisions that you make, where you started making decisions from your heart, and then all of a sudden fear came in. And then you start making decisions out of fear. And usually when we make the decision out of fear, it'll lead us to this place of dissatisfaction. If we can look at the map and see where our heart was leading us, and then at that point we have an opportunity to either recreate what we want to do, or at least have an understanding of what our part of our dissatisfaction is in our life, so that we are empowered then at that point to do something. Otherwise, it's always going to be about someone else and something else. And we know that it's never about something else or someone else. It never is. We are making our choices. We are, we're always, creating the life that we have. And whether that's, like right now, I'm in a lot of stress. And someone could say, I'm not creating, this that happened. No, those things do happen. That's that polarity of life. There will always be the negative. There's always going to be the positive. But, my reaction to and the choices that I'm making is creating my feelings about how I'm responding to all that stuff. So, I have to be really genuine about that and honest with myself. We lie to ourselves so much. We lie to ourselves regularly, how I am today. What do I need? What do I feel? What do I believe? What is my intuition telling me? What am I afraid of? What do I,
Why do you think that is? Why do you think we lie to ourselves?
because if we're honest, then we have to feel that pain. Our mind will do anything to keep us from feeling pain. We are terrified of pain. And what it is, we're terrified of change. We're terrified of death. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Even those of us that aren't really scared of dying, we're scared of the end or of the change of what is now, And the only way through that is to become super hyper aware of the present. And that's the power of the present moment and so forth. But when we're there, then we're not thinking about anything else, and we are just fully present. And then all of our reality is right now. Otherwise, our mind will be, don't acknowledge that feeling of self-doubt. Don't listen to that inner critic. Don't believe the heart that wants to pull you, 5,000 miles away from where you are now. Don't take the risk on your job because of all the fear and all the scary things that, So.
I think you bring up a great point, because right now what's going on in the world, as you can see anywhere you look, there is a lot of divisiveness, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty, the great mystery, we don't know what's going to happen next, and this is a timely conversation we're having, because you're telling us to get back into the now and really look at what our choice is in this moment, and really that's all we can do each moment. But if we try to hang on to something that way the world used to be, the way we used to feel secure, maybe how the government used to be, it's like we can't do that anymore. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit, about how we can navigate through the changing world and changing environment around us right now, with all over the place as it's happening to people.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I would call that grief. And I just wrote, and let me explain that. I wrote an article for Yoga Journal recently about the 10 ways to deal with grief and be fearless about the grief. And the biggest way is to acknowledge that we need to grieve our past. And sometimes that just means we need to grieve last week. And that's okay. If we're having sadness and the grief and the missing and the longing and the fear and the uncertainty and the feelings of insecurity, if we're not processing our grief and the fear of all that through, then we kind of get into a place of where we're either in panic mode or we're totally projecting constantly. It's really hard to be present with any kind of emotion. Grief is a real thing, and it's not just when someone dies or when we lose a friend or what have you. Grief it's very real. And on the other side of grief, once that flushes through us, then we can be present and we can open our eyes again and feel what the moment actually feels like, which may be good. But when we're so fixated on what was, and I'll never get this back, or even the grief of our government,
right.
There's a lot of emotion that goes on for a lot of people, feelings of injustice, feelings of fear, feelings of sadness from people that have come before, so I think grief is a really big, and again, that's that heart energy, and when we have unprocessed grief, it blocks the heart energy. And then in our daily intimate personal lives and with our relationship with ourselves, it's really hard to feel and to touch anything else, because it's like waterlogged with all this unprocessed grief,
Right. And grief, you mentioned a lot of ways grief can show itself in terms of your life and not just about a death. But I think of when I went through a divorce many years ago, I grieved not only the loss, but the loss of dreams, the loss of goals, the loss of my life, the loss of the choice I made. And that's a tough thing to go through. But I realized myself that I spent time with myself going through that. Now, what does that mean, going through it? Maybe we should talk about how, because this is huge, what you said about grief. This is huge. How can people start the process of grieving? They don't even know what to do. Does that mean just crying? What can they do?
Well, so a few things. I am really a big fan of writing or expressing in some way.
Me too.
Moving that energy in some way. So when you get it moving, and sometimes for me, it's literally sitting in the car at night with, it's dark outside and I'm playing some soulful music that, stirs something in me. And then in that stirring, my emotions start bubbling up and then I can let it out. Sometimes that's what it is for me. Sometimes it's art. I think music, art, and writing are very powerful ways to engage our senses. And even the beauty of something, if a person can be disciplined enough to go and take a mindful, meditative kind of walk, you could see, you can find your grief in the world. There's so many people in need. There's so many beautiful things. There's so much sweetness and damage and so many, everything's out in the world. So if we can get there, or if you're that kind of person that can use mindfulness but many of us need something to move us, and that's why I say get into the expression, whether it's with music or with writing, and then let whatever emotion. Grief isn't just crying. Grief is screaming. Grief is yelling. Grief is rage. Sometimes grief is sadness. Grief is happiness. Grief is all kinds of things. It's full of the life itself. And when we can spend some time just honoring what that life was, then it will process through and allow space for what is right now.
So animate the grief, animate it, allow it to come alive within yourself and without yourself. So I love the art thing. I love the idea of taking something and putting it on paper and then being able to see it out here and then keep doing that and having a dialogue with it. So we talk a lot about on the show. I always say journal, so I'm so glad you said that too. Journaling, the art, the dancing, the movement, exercise. I know you could take it out in certain classes you can go to, or kickboxing or something. You don't have to go take a whole series. You can go do one class. It's that kind of thing. And I agree with you. It's not just getting silent with it. It's like you need to move through it, move with it, because grief is asking you to become alive again. I love when we talk about the emotions, because the emotions are there to remind us that we are alive, and it is our way. It's like a barometer to what's going on in our world when we don't always mentally make that connection.
Right. Yeah.
So this kind of allows us to make a mind-body connection, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, for me, I love yoga. It's often, and when I take yoga, if I am really present in the class, by the end of class, I'm crying. It's almost like wringing out, the emotion. And I don't want to make it sound like, people need to be just totally emoting all the time, and crying all the time. There's all the rest of the time it's available for, laughing and joy and thinking and all the other emotions. But we do really need to honor, life, and that is part of life.
And honor life in all the ways that it shows up.
Yeah.
And it does show up like life is always like this. So,
right.
So you talk a lot about how to get from trauma into more of a wellness. I know it's a process, and I know your book covers a lot of these steps. Maybe you could take us through somebody's feeling, let's just say they're feeling something not so pleasant happened in the past. You could fill in an A, B, C, D. It could be anything as people fill it in with. And now they want to get to a place where they feel a little more stable or secure or within their life, that they can actually progress and move forward. What do you suggest?
Well, I mean, again, that's kind of a big blanket question. I think the biggest thing to do is for a person to become self-aware and do some self-work to see what the root is of their, most of us have a root issue, and sometimes it's tied with 2 or 3 other things, but most of us have a root issue, whether it's abandonment or that feeling of low self-esteem, or the feeling of grief, or feeling like they don't belong here, or separation. So we need to find the root emotion of what's stopping us from having connectivity and feeling grounded and in ourselves and powerful and able to move forward. But it's not like a light switch, and that's what I want to emphasize for people. I
wish it was.
I know. It is a process, it's a process every day, and that's the challenge of living. It's also the challenge of healing. It's also the challenge of dying. Everything is a process. It doesn't, most of the time it doesn't just boom happen, even when we don't see, behind the scenes of what's going on. So we have to be willing and patient to live in the process of healing and recognizing what the root issue is. Like, for example, if someone's having issues feeling like they, with work is a big one. I don't know what I'm doing in my life. I don't feel like I have a purpose. I feel unfulfilled, et cetera, et cetera. And usually that stems ultimately down to shame.
Yeah.
They feel ashamed of who they are. they feel such shame that they can't allow themselves to succeed or feel confident enough to do a thing or even accept the thing that it is they feel in their soul to do, because they're hiding behind the shame, not purposefully hiding behind it, but it's just such a big it's such a like a web inside of a person. And so when we can identify that if it is the shame, how can we take steps to free the shame, to let it flow and move and free it? And how can we take steps to actually strengthen, turn those weaknesses into strength? And again, this is the power of connectivity. And people often don't want to hear it, but I'm going to keep preaching it until
say it.
Until you can, because it is everything that has created all of our dysfunction. Those are the very things that have the capacity to strengthen us.
I agree.
Yeah, so we have to not only find it, acknowledge it, and accept it, but then use it. It is your strength. That very thing that is bringing you down is the very thing that's going to make you soar. It is your strength.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Your inner demons, as I always say, your inner demons are your inner daemons, and daemons are sprites or helpers in your life. So we got to find those, as what you're saying, locate where that grief, where you feel it. I always like to go, where in my body do I feel it, and try to give it some kind of shape, size, color, movement, voice. And then from there, I can start working with it. And I agree with you, Leah. This is a lifelong process. Hey, everybody, welcome to life. I mean, this is what we signed up for. This is what we get to do. But there's the beauty along the way too. And I love that you say, if you go and move into this, whether it's the pain, the fear, the shame, the anger, the grief, you actually get to find what else is beneath that, or what else is coupling it, or what is it hiding from you within there? Because there is everything else in there too. And so it's a matter of getting through that, getting to it, and maybe find a way to incorporate it. What I really like about your work, Leah, is that everything I've seen and read and heard so far is, and I did a lot of research on her, by the way, you guys, is that she looks at not getting rid of things and making yourself feeling worse because it happened to you. Instead, she finds a way to welcome it and incorporate it. These are more probably my words, but in a way to embrace it. And so can you speak to that a little bit more, how it's become this holistic process for you of working with all of these things we're talking about today?
Right.
And by the way, I know I'm asking hard questions, but I'm trying to hit on everything that I get. Everybody writes me questions a lot about these topics, and it's great to hear from another perspective, and I have a lot of respect for her work. So take it away, Leah.
Well, I'll just speak to the letting go. When you talk about getting rid of people.
Yes, people say let go, and you say...
I say don't. I say detachment is actually the worst thing for your emotional health. And the reason why, there's two reasons why. One is that I always explain it this way: like if you believe that we are all connected and that we are all one, and the whole the universe and all things are connected and all things matter, right? And a lot of people do believe that, and I believe that too. You can't believe that and then carve out a chunk of that doesn't suit you, and then still believe that. Whatever has happened, whatever has been, is part of that whole. And so when we try to let it go or detach from it or dissociate or ignore it or be free of it, we're in total conflict with our belief system, for one thing, but now we're almost like psychically damaging ourselves because we're not connected to the truth of our reality. It's like akin to, I have a scrape on my arm, just cut the arm off and put it over there. It has to kind of stay in my sphere, but I don't want it to be part of me, because you can't ever forget anything. So it's really causing a lot of people anxiety, insomnia, issues with their feelings of being able to love, feelings of being lovable. And again, they're trying to take everything out so they can be free. But the truth is that the freedom is in here. The freedom is within us. The freedom isn't out there. And so inside of ourselves, if we learn how to accept what is, and in my book, I talk about building a pillar and letting everything actually form us. Like you take this experience and you slap it onto your pillar, just like a marble pillar, and you strengthen it and you strengthen it and you strengthen it and strengthen it with everything that happens. Otherwise, you have this pillar and then you take it away, take it away, take it away. And what happens? The pillar starts to break.
Oh,
There's no strength there. There's no solidity there. So if we can actually form our life with our experiences, no matter what they are, and even, with PTSD, they're finding that the more that people try to forget and go through therapy and try to just, control their mind, the more they're suffering. What's helping is to actually sit with the memories, to sit with whatever shows up, just to sit with that and allow that. And as we allow it, we tell our mind, we show our mind that there's a bigger piece of ourselves. Our soul is able to handle this, and we need this because this is real, and this keeps us together, and that is what forms our strength and will start settling into and give us the freedom to just be. And not only just be, but to be strong, Another example I say in the book is, because I used to own this healing center and it was a retail store, and everyone would come in and say, how do I protect myself? How do I get rid of all the negativity around me and protect myself from these people? And I would always point to them, and here I have all these crystals and sage and everything, which I sell, but I would point to them and say, you are the one that can protect yourself. Because if you're in this position of defense, of everything's affecting me,
right,
then you're basically cowering and going, don't hurt me, what can I do to get rid of them? Why don't we think of it as I'm strengthening myself with my pillar, and here I am, and you guys do whatever you want to do, because I'm here and I'm strong, and I have all of my pieces with me, and I have all of my experience with me, and I always think of it like I'm holding it, not that it's weighing me down, but that it's actually part of my form, my core, it's my life. And this is my life I bring forward. And in that, I shine. Otherwise, I'm fragmented and broken and frail. And, my pillar's like this. And it's a weak position.
You bring up a wonderful point. We need to quit seeing ourselves as pawns to the world. We're not. And what you're bringing to it, Leah, what you're talking about is seeing yourself. I love when you do this. That's the idea of embracing. She's embracing herself and saying, take it, leave it. This is who I am. The foibles, the triumphs, the strengths, the weaknesses, everything that's my experiences has happened to me. Take me as I am. I am solid and strong and protected within that. Now, I talk a lot about on this channel, and you guys know, we talk a lot about how to feel centered within yourself. Leah is talking about that right now to you guys. She's talking about how to be centered and how to be inclusive of everything within you to feel that strength, that strong pillar. I love that inner core pillar. I was going to ask you about that, so I'm glad you got to that. So instead of her going, I have to be protected from this negativity or this ghost or this spirit, and I'm not saying those things don't exist, because I talk about that all the time. I'm saying you become strong within yourself, and then you are that solid protection. You are that crystal. You are that crystalline structure. And yes, I keep my crystals too, and my sage and my stones and my waters and all these things I do, because it reminds me, and it kind of augments what I already know. So this is a brilliant conversation. I want everybody to really hear this again about how you are solid within yourself. Learn to become that. And this is what her book and her work teaches. This is how you help people transform, Leah. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
It's kind of like remembering and reclaiming who you are.
Yeah. Well, and it's accepting, again, when we get to a level of emotional maturity where we can stop blaming everyone, the world, and it doesn't matter. I always say, it doesn't matter what the story is. It doesn't matter who did what. What matters is how you are, and what are you doing to make how you are better, to make yourself aligned with your soul. And that's what your job is. And that's what my job is. And if I'm not doing my job, then I'm not doing my job. It doesn't matter how hard my job is. It doesn't matter how much I resist my job or don't want my job to be this because someone else. The reality is this happened, and here I am. And I'm responsible for what I'm doing, not what they did to me. They're going to deal with their stuff however they're dealing with it. I have to deal with my stuff, and this is the part of self-responsibility and self-development that we need to take ownership of. And this is how we get on the healing path. It has never anything to do with anyone else. Never. It has nothing to do with anyone else.
Never, 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 and never. It truly is ourself, because then we learn to be strong again within this and make decisions from that place. So yes, things happen up and down. Life has its trials and tribulations, but we get to choose in that moment how we want to respond or react to it or move through it. And that's the beauty of this. And we were talking earlier about how does somebody know, like career, what are they supposed to do in their life? How do I find my passion? How do I pursue it? This is how you start to do it, you guys. What Leah's talking about here is getting to know that inner core and looking at all these parts of yourself you don't always want to look at, and the parts you do want to look at. That makes up the whole you. And this is how you begin to understand how to find what you want to pursue in life. That question I get asked a lot. I'm sure you do too, Leah.
Mm-hmm. I do, yep. And it's a big question, but again, our mind, it gets so judgmental, especially in this world that we live in, that we think our purpose has to be, something written in a TV ad or something. Our purpose can sometimes, it may just be, helping one person, maybe loving one person. That may be your purpose. It may be loving one animal, that may be your purpose. Our purpose doesn't have to be this huge, undertaking and developing new ideas and products and all that kind of stuff. It takes that one person that you love. Maybe that person needed your love so that they can go and develop the next computer and the next, healing modality or whatever. And if they didn't have your love, they will never get there. So whatever your purpose is, it's huge. They're all equal, And so if we can strip away the judgment of the mind and strip away I should do this and I should do this and my parents think I should do this, and really get down to what is it that who are you? Where are you connected fully in alignment with your soul, that when you're doing that, you feel right, and we're onto it.
Yeah, and it shows up in little ways in your life, as you said. It becomes a snowball effect because you never know how you're affecting somebody. And if you, like you said, even just love one person or love that one animal, that shows up and repeats itself through the cycle and lives of those beings, of the beings you're touching. So that's a great way of looking at it. Just being more authentic with yourself within, and that in turn shows itself externally without, and that helps other people as you move through life. So it doesn't have to be this huge humanitarian, altruistic thing, although it may be. And I think by just doing that one thing, it does become that. And that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, it's all that. If it's heart-centered, it is that. The thing, it could be whatever you have, and again, I talk about detachment. I'm fine having things. I have a lot of things, and I love the things that I have, and they have nothing to do with just the things I have, I love, and I care for. If I can't do a good job caring for the things that I have, then I'm not doing a good job for myself. And so I think that's our job, and if that's rubbing you wrong, then maybe you need to consider what you have in your life, meaning jobs, people, plants, animals, lamps, whatever it is. Are you taking good care of those things? We're meant to be good stewards of our stuff, and our stuff is us. And so that, I think, is our number one kind of charge, how we're taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, that seems so important to really look at that. So take like an assessment of what's going on in your life, and where do you feel like it's important to you, and are you noticing the importance in that and cherishing that? I love that word, cherish. Are you cherishing those things, and are you cherishing yourself within those spaces or with those people or in those relationships? And if the answer is no, then it's time to probably look at some of these things. And it doesn't have to be tedious and laborious. You could do it a little at a time. You can look at these things a little bit at a time, right, Leah? Maybe you could talk about how you fit this into your life. Okay, for example, you just lost. I just had a death of a close friend, and I'm still working through it. And I'll be working through that probably for the rest of my life in some regards. But it gets easier each day. Maybe you can talk to that. How when you lose somebody. Whether it's a spouse, a friend, a parent, a child, an animal, God forbid, all these things that we hate letting go of, and they move on. How do you work with that and still live your life?
Well, like I mentioned, those ways of grieving and how we process our emotions, it is hugely important. One, I'm a big believer that I don't think anything truly dies. But for me, I have to memorialize my love, and that's what I do, whether it's in art or, in that article I wrote, I recommended even, creating a new recipe with the person's name or their favorite flavors in it or something, and memorializing that person into your life, because the energy will never change. The energy of your love never dies. It never changes. their presence is not there, whether this is a relationship or a loss or death or what have you. But as we memorialize it and stay connected to the feeling, it does change and shift, just like a regular relationship changes and shifts, and we feel guilty and we feel free and we feel, longing and all these things, just like a live relationship.
Yeah.
You feel distant, you feel anger, you feel resentment, you feel passion, so the relationship, we need to honor our emotions that are going to shift and change after the loss happens as well. It's not just one, blanket thing of, oh, I'm sad they're not here anymore. It's recognizing, oh my God, today I feel angry at that person, or I feel such sadness, or I feel such love, or I feel, happiness about this memory, and just keep with you stay with the relationship, and it does change. I mean, time changes it for sure.
I love that when you said memorialize the relationship and stay with the relationship, and it never really leaves. I know for myself, I'll share this, when my friend many years died just a month ago. We did a celebration of life for her, but because I was working with her internally, I was having my own personal conversations with her, and then she started coming in dreams. I was doing artwork. I wrote a poem I shared with the group, all these different things, and it keeps changing. And I like that you say that it's not one thing you're going to experience, but it's multifaceted and many different days. Sometimes I'm angry, sometimes I'm happy, sometimes like you said, I remember a good memory. Other times I'm sad, and every day it just changes a little bit, especially when you're close to the loss, or the transition, if you want to call it that, of that relationship changing. And then it starts getting easier. When I say easier, what happens is I start getting some distance from it, and I'm getting used to my emotions, and I'm willing to look at them. Yeah. And I think dreams and the writing and the art, that really helped me through this.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, for sure. It really does. Yeah.
Now I noticed in your background, I saw a guitar, you have a piano, you are an artist, you are a musician. Share that with us. What does that mean to you? I mean, you bring it into your life. I've seen you on some videos singing and playing.
Yeah. It just is who I am. I'm an artist just through and through. I don't do that kind of thing for money really anymore, but it's just a part of my life, and it's how I understand life, I see it through a particular lens, and I always have, and I just feel really connected to the emotion of creation. I feel like if I were to say I were one thing, I would say I'm a creator or a producer. I really like producing. I'm a creative thought person. I like bringing things to life, and ironically, I don't have any children of my own, but I bring, so many other things to life, whether it's the book or the products or artwork or music or ideas. Right now, I'm actually taking I'm converting a van into a moving spiritual boutique vehicle.
Ooh.
And actually, we'll hopefully be in California sometime soon.
Well, we'll hook up then.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And, yeah, so I really like innovative ideas and using those ideas to express, just who I am.
I love that. I've had many, as the audience knows, many creative people from all different walks of life who are expressing themselves in the world and using, whether it's tools, techniques, or art, something, and they express themselves. And that's, again, what this show is about. Would you hold up your book cover so we can see that again? This is her new book, you guys. It just came out where we'll be talking about a lot of the... Oh, is that upside down? That's okay. It's upside down. You can read it upside down, I guess, if you'd like. It's a beautiful book cover. When it just came out, I mean, it's real recent, like this year, right?
Yeah, it's like 6 months old. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And a meditation CD that goes with it as well, huh?
Where can they find your book? Tell them where they can find your book, and also where they can find your products.
Yeah, the book, The Fearless Path, you can find at Barnes & Noble, Target.com, Amazon, and of course my site, which is my name, Leah Guy, or modernsage.com. And our products are available mostly in a few stores in the East Coast right now, but you can order them online through the website at modernsage.com. I have crystals there, and sage, and sprays, and soaps, and chakra oils, and
I know, I was looking at it all. It's really cool. And you guys, all the links are below to her book, where you can get it, her websites. And I'd really, do we have access to the link for the article you just wrote about grief? Because I think that's a huge one. Do you have that article I can link to?
Yeah, sure. It's
Excellent.
just I'll send it to you. Yeah.
Great. We'll link below. All the links will be there, you guys. Now, we're at the place of the show where we've come to a kind of a closing place. But what would you like to, if you could say anything else to the audience, this show is always about inspiring ourselves to be our greatest self. And of course, you talked all about that today. What final words would you like to share with the audience that they can take away from and use it right now to be inspired to move forward?
Oh, wow. Well, I am a big action taker. So I think no matter what it is, even if you take a misstep, that taking action is always better than no action. So yes, there's a time to germinate ideas and to think through things and to feel through things. But if you have something, I would say if you have something that is percolating in you and is kind of pushing you, no matter what obstacles seem to be in front of you, if you just start taking action, then you will feel successful. And even if, you may just take one step, but that step is one step that you didn't take before. And that step, remind yourself, especially with that solar plexus, that self-identity, that willpower, determination, energy, and that who I am, that one step is a step towards telling yourself, I can trust myself and I am confident, or I am able, or I am willing, or I am a risk taker, or I can do this. So just take one little step, and that's it, and see where that goes. And you can sit on that step for a while, and then take the next one. So just keep moving.
That's wonderful. Very, very great advice, because that one step will inevitably make you put your next foot in front of you so you don't fall off balance. So you're going to keep moving forward. I love that. I want to thank you so much for joining us here today, Leah. You're a great guest. I think you had some great ideas. And you guys check out her book. It's beautiful. But thank you again, Leah, for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me.
You're very welcome. So there you have it, you guys. Here's a woman who's in the world finding ways and sharing these ways with people, how to become embraced within their core self, how to find that true self of themselves that may just be kind of a little wobbly at times, only because it's stuff that had happened, but to find how to put that back together, reclaim it, rediscover it, and then stand within it and know that you are a powerful being. I hope you took something away today from this, and I ask you to get out there, take that step that Leah suggests, and see where it takes you. And now go out there and explore the world. Again, thank you for joining us here today. And this was Creative Visions TV, and I'm Karen Dahlman, and I'll see you again next time. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.